What happens when an industrial millionaire attempts to build an American utopia in the heart of the Amazon rainforest? This is the story of Fordlandia, Henry Ford's ambitious and ultimately doomed attempt to create a self-sustaining rubber plantation and model town deep in Brazil. With a vision rooted in efficiency, morality, and control, Fordlandia was meant to secure rubber for Ford's automobile empire while exporting American ideals. But instead, it became a cautionary tale of ambition clashing with cultural and environmental realities. Today, we'll dive into the rise and fall of Fordlandia, exploring its ambition, execution, downfall, and legacy. Let's uncover what made this project both a marvel and a disaster. In the 1920s, the automotive boom was in full swing. Henry Ford was one of the world's richest men. The Model T was the most popular vehicle of the time, and Ford's assembly lines revolutionized car production, making automobiles accessible to millions. But there was one problem. Every car required rubber, a resource Ford was forced to source from the rubber cartels, dominated by British and Dutch plantations in Southeast Asia. Ford had already streamlined the manufacturing process of the car, engine, body, and other parts by implementing the assembly line process. He was always searching for opportunities to become a better and more efficient car manufacturer, and more efficient meant lower cost to the consumer. One of the biggest costs in the process were the tires, and Ford needed a lot of them. Ford's revolutionary assembly line process enabled Ford to build 7,000 to 8,000 cars per day. If you multiply that times 4, and that means that he needed up to 32,000 tires per day, every day of the week, just to keep up with the production lines. The cost of rubber soared as these powers monopolized its production. Between 1914 and 1922, the price of natural rubber fluctuated wildly, from as low as 11.5 cents to as high as $1.02 per pound. This volatility threatened Ford's profits and pushed him to seek a solution. Determined to cut costs and control his supply chain, Ford devised an audacious plan: grow his own rubber in the Amazon, a region with the ideal climate for rubber trees. The Amazon rainforest, home to the Hevea brasiliensis tree, seemed like the perfect answer. Ford's vision wasn't just agricultural. He aimed to build a model American town, complete with schools, hospitals, and recreational facilities. This town would embody Ford's ideals: hard work, discipline, and moral living. In 1927, Ford's company secured a 2.5 million acre tract of land along the Tapajós River in the heart of the Amazon. The deal included a promise. After 12 years of operation, 7% of the profits would go to the Brazilian government, with 2% earmarked for local municipalities. Ford's initial investment was significant, but the potential rewards seemed even greater. Ford's dream extended beyond rubber production. He envisioned a community that would serve as a model for the proper way to live. This included Ford's ideals of hard work, temperance, and thrift. To him, Fordlandia was as much about cultivating a moral society as it was about rubber. Building a city in the heart of the Amazon jungle was no small feat. Materials had to be transported through miles of dense terrain, and workers faced brutal conditions. Construction began in 1928, but from the start, Fordlandia faced monumental challenges. The site's remote location meant materials had to be transported by boat along the Amazon. Once there, workers contended with dense jungle, extreme heat, and relentless insects. Diseases like malaria and yellow fever claimed numerous lives, echoing the toll seen during the Panama Canal's construction. While exact numbers vary, hundreds succumbed to these harsh conditions during Fordlandia's early years. To oversee the project, Ford brought on James Kennedy, a close associate known for his loyalty, but not for his expertise in tropical agriculture or cultural diplomacy. Kennedy's authoritarian leadership style caused tensions with Brazilian workers, exacerbating labor disputes and further hindering progress. Ford imposed strict American norms on the workers. Alcohol was banned, uncomfortable uniforms were required, and workers had to adhere to rigid schedules. Meals consisted of unfamiliar American dishes like hamburgers and oatmeal, which alienated Brazilian workers used to their native cuisine. These rules clashed with local customs, leading to widespread dissatisfaction. Ford's attempts to replicate Midwestern values in the Amazon overlooked the deeply ingrained traditions and practices of the Brazilian workers. For example, Ford's prohibition of alcohol, a staple in local social customs, alienated the workforce, creating an environment of discontent. The workers were required to wear ID badges and punch time cards, concepts completely foreign to their traditional way of life in the Amazon. Ford implemented a point system in Fordlandia where workers could earn or lose points based on their behavior. Good gardening practices earned points, while drinking alcohol or gambling resulted in deductions. As one manager noted, "We're not just growing rubber here, we're growing men." This system was abandoned after widespread resistance. Despite the obstacles, Fordlandia's infrastructure took shape. Significant funds went into building homes, schools, a hospital, and even a golf course. By 1930, Fordlandia had the amenities of a small American town, but its operational costs spiraled out of control. Archibald Johnston, another close associate of Henry Ford, was brought in to oversee agricultural production. However, Johnston's lack of experience in tropical agriculture and his rigid approach to management compounded Fordlandia's struggles. Ford's team planted rubber trees too close together, ignoring advice from agricultural experts of the region. This made the trees vulnerable to pests and fungal diseases like leaf blight, which decimated crops year after year. Production targets were never met, and Fordlandia's agricultural mission faltered as a result. The problems didn't stop there. Workers grew increasingly resentful of the cultural impositions. Ford's insistence on American-style living, from diet to housing, clashed with the local way of life. The rigid schedules were also at odds with Brazil's more relaxed labor culture, adding to the growing tensions. By 1930, tensions between American managers and Brazilian workers boiled over during a cafeteria riot. Workers, frustrated by the food, working conditions, and strict rules, destroyed property, including the cafeteria and other buildings. Managers were chased into the jungle, and order was only restored after Brazilian authorities intervened. This riot symbolized the deep cultural misunderstandings and dissatisfaction that plagued Fordlandia. Despite all of the turmoil and unrest, Ford never visited Fordlandia himself, despite investing millions in the project. He managed it entirely through telegrams and representatives. Henry Ford attempted to salvage the venture by establishing a second plantation called Belterra in 1934. Located about 40 miles from Fordlandia, Belterra was strategically planned and managed with better scientific methods. Yet, it too struggled with pests, diseases, and economic inefficiencies. Meanwhile, the economic landscape was shifting. By the mid-1930s, advances in synthetic rubber, a product of research during World War II, began to reduce global reliance on natural rubber. This technological breakthrough further undermined the economic rationale for Ford's Amazonian ventures. By 1945, after pouring $20 million into the Amazonian ventures, equivalent to over $300 million today, Ford's dream of an independent rubber supply was in shambles. The advent of synthetic rubber during World War II rendered both plantations obsolete. Ford ultimately sold the land back to the Brazilian government for a mere $250,000. Today, much of Henry Ford's dream stands in ruins. The jungle has reclaimed Fordlandia, leaving behind a ghost town that serves as a stark reminder of the environmental and social toll of such ventures. Ford's failure in the Amazon offers critical lessons. It underscores the dangers of imposing foreign ideals on local cultures without collaboration. Fordlandia was a case study in hubris, an industrialist attempting to bend nature and society to his will without understanding their complexities. The environmental impact of the project was severe. The deforestation caused by clearing land for rubber plantations disrupted local ecosystems, and the chemicals used in agriculture polluted waterways. Meanwhile, the cultural impositions alienated the very people Ford relied on for the project's success. Despite its ultimate failure, Fordlandia did leave positive marks on the region. The project created one of the first modern hospitals in the Amazon, helping combat tropical diseases that had long plagued the area. Fordlandia's hospital was revolutionary for its time. Dr. Alberto Tostes, who worked there, wrote in 1931, "We have more medical equipment here in the jungle than most hospitals in Rio de Janeiro. The hospital provided free health care to all workers and their families, a concept far ahead of its time in Brazil." At its peak, the city employed over 500 workers and boasted amenities that were unheard of in the region: a power plant, a hospital, and even a library, all of which now stand as ruins in the jungle. In recent years, Fordlandia has gained attention as a niche tourist destination. For about $8, visitors can witness the remnants of Ford's utopian dream and reflect on its legacy. The abandoned site attracts historians, environmentalists, and curious travelers alike. Fordlandia's story holds relevance today as we grapple with the consequences of globalization and the interplay between ambition and sustainability. Modern corporations, like Ford in the 1920s, often face challenges when attempting to impose their values and methods on different cultures. The story of Fordlandia is a cautionary tale for companies and leaders about the need for cultural sensitivity, environmental stewardship, and humility. Fordlandia is a cautionary tale of industrial ambition meeting the immovable forces of nature and culture. It reminds us that even the most visionary ideas can falter without understanding and respect for the environment and the people they impact. As historian Greg Grandin notes, Fordlandia represents the climax of the American industrial frontier, the ultimate battle between industrial time and nature's time. As we look to the future, what parallels can we draw from Fordlandia to today's global ventures? How can businesses balance ambition with cultural sensitivity and environmental stewardship? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.